Okay, so another clip from Tipcast last week. We're asking Tommy Dunn who can challenge Limerick this year. We're about to do the power rankings, so let's just hear a little bit about Tommy Dunn's thoughts on this.
I'd say the answer to the second question at the minute is it's hard to see anyone keeping into him, unfortunately. The landscape, as I see it at the minute, is it's hard to get a gauge. I think I've been thinking about it a little bit there for the last few weeks. It's hard to get a gauge. I think a lot of teams will be better. Certainly need to be better, and probably will be better when the championship starts. So, for example, I thought there was a strong possibility of Cork getting a bounce with Pat Ryan as the manager this year, and then they were going okay, had a good win in round one in the league against the All-Ireland champions, and I said, this could be something here. And then in the league semi-final in Nolan Park, you saw a kind of a no-show job. So I think they will be better. I think in the championship. I think Waterford will be a lot better in the championship. I think Galway will probably be a good bit better in the championship. So the thing with the league is it's just hard to get a proper gauge. I think the Tip Limerick game was a genuinely intense game for as long as Tip could stay with them. And I think that was actually maybe possibly a fair reflection of where Limerick are at relative to Tip and probably some of the rest of the teams as well.
Okay, so you can see the rest of that show on the Nina Guardian YouTube page. Will we go straight into our power rankings now? So you see on the right-hand side of the page, this is the last rankings we did. We're doing number 3 today. So we had Limerick, Kilkenny, Galway, Clare, Tipperary, Cork, Waterford, Dublin, Wexford, Antrim and Westmeath. Now, straight off the bat, do you think much has changed?
There's probably a fair bit has changed, to be fair. Outside of the number 1, like 2 to 7 is quite subjective, and opinions will vary wildly. I'd say from 2 to 7. Opinions will vary widely on a team like Clare, for instance. Opinions will probably vary widely on Kilkenny based on the league final. So I think I think there's plenty of debate to be had. And at the end of the day, this is going to come down to where we think they're finishing, is it not? This has to come down to where we think they're finishing and whether they're getting out of their province now.
Yeah, and by the way, just to clarify, it's 6 weeks since we've done one of these, so plenty has changed in the meantime. Obviously, the league title, and Tommy Dunn made an interesting point there in terms of Cork and what he considered a no-show in the semi-final of the league against Kilkenny at Nolan Park. Could they end up having a bit of a Waterford 2022 season whereby everything's looked rosy, and then you have one bad performance in Wexford, I was more thinking of. They had a really good league, and then all of a sudden wheels came off in the semi-final against Waterford. Could that happen to Cork? But are we thinking, like, by dint of the performance, and obviously I wasn't here last week to talk about the Kilkenny against Limerick game in the league final, are Kilkenny moving down a little bit now by dint of that performance?
Slightly, yeah, I would say. Again, we didn't really talk about it, but you look at a couple of the under-20 stars that played senior in the league final, absolutely lit it up for Kilkenny again last weekend, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. So, they shouldn't just be judging that one performance maybe in the league final. I still think Kilkenny are still in the top 4, but I probably wouldn't have them number 2 at the moment. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah. So, right, let's just put Limerick in number 1 and let's do the messing. Now,
this is like, the time that racehorse Eclipse won a race and it was like, Eclipse first, the rest nowhere. They didn't bother reading out who came 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yeah, we've people coming in with comments straight away saying, should it not be a top 13 maybe because 2 Joe McDonagh Cups will be in or 2 Joe McDonagh teams will be in the preliminary quarterfinals. Potentially, it would make it very messy for us SSRI, so I think we're going to take the handy option just for the moment and not do that. Limerick 1, Tip 2, Kilkenny 3, and ML89, that was Liam Linehan, ML89, Limerick 1, Galway 2, Kilkenny, Tip, Clare, Cork, Waterford, Dublin, Wexford, Antrim, Westmeath. That actually sounds not too far off it.
But can I just ask you, in one sense, how would you have Galway number 2, based on what we've seen so far in the league?
Well, partly because they're going through a weaker province, and you're guaranteed that 2 of the Munster teams aren't going to get through.
Okay, do we need to put our heads on the block here about who we think are who do we think are the three that are going to come out of the province, and then try and arrange those into a top 6 first?
I mean, yes and no, but there's teams that we kind of might struggle to decide. Okay, will it be Waterford, Clare, Tip? One of those 2 to 3 teams get through. Do we still think that they're better than Galway and Kilkenny? So part of it is like we're projecting who will come through. Part of it is we think who will win if they were to meet. But just as we're doing that, I have to say I thought Kilkenny competed really well in the first 10 or 15 minutes of that league final as I watched it back. Right, Limerick could have won by more. They had 15 second half whites. They really could have won by more. But I thought the big difference was Kilkenny's use of the ball. Now, they were blood and thunder as you need to be against Limerick to sort of break even as they did in the first 10 minutes. Something Tip have done a bit, but then it's kind of sustaining it is the problem. And I just thought that what was really letting Kilkenny down after the early blood and thunder was just their use of the ball. Like stick passes in stupid areas, putting the balls into the corner flag for their kind of attackers to try and collect, and then do something when all of a sudden you've swarms of Limerick who are just all over you. Like Limerick just have that composure to take the extra pass, run it out. Obviously they're physically huge, so it's very like players can carry the ball into contact with confidence. But I just think that Kilkenny's use of the ball at times, and new manager, it'll take a while to get the ideas in, but their use of the ball was what let them down. Stick passing into traffic, stick passing when it wasn't on. Unfortunately, it's the era of the hand pass, so you're just going to have to get with it. And Limerick are brilliant at using the stick pass as well, and in tight areas. But you need to get the foundation of brilliant hand passing through the lines before you can actually bring the stick pass into play.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And it's obviously something that they're trying to hone, and it will take a bit of time. But I definitely wouldn't be writing off Kilkenny. Like, I remember Limerick rocked into Nolan Park in 2019 as All-Ireland champions and blew Kilkenny away in a league game. And, later on that year, who's the team that knocks Kilkenny off their perch and that is the last team to beat them in a knockout championship match? Kilkenny. Like, and that's obviously without TJ Reid and like a half-fit Adrian Mullen. And hopefully Richie Hogan will be back towards the latter stages of Leinster as well. I definitely wouldn't be writing off Kilkenny, but I'd probably say Kilkenny and Galway are fairly interchangeable. But they're the clear two in Leinster. You'd have to say they are the clear two. It's a matter of where you put them in the pecking order when you mix in, whoever you think is going to be second and third within Munster as well.
Okay, so I'll go through a few more comments and then we'll start trying to put a bit of shape to this. Richard Hogan says, Cork are so Jekyll and Hyde, similar to last year in the round robin, might start off poorly and go strong at the end. Also adds, Munster's a bit clearer for me now. Limerick and Tip are the top two, not sure about who's best to the rest. Emil89 has it, Kilkenny and Galway interchangeable. It seems to depend on who Galway are playing. They could bake Kilkenny and lose to Wexford. Geroda will crack on. Tip are getting way too overrated here. Emil89, again, league has become so phony, you could nearly base it more on last year's championship games, I presume you mean. Reaching back, but probably more applicable to glorified challenge matches. Maybe read more into league form. Okay, am I gonna say it? Tipperary number 2?
No.
Not for you.
No. I think they'll come out of Munster, definitely. I think it's Limerick and Tipperary are the two certainties for me to come out of Munster. Maybe not certainties, but I do think Tip will be second in Munster. Are Tip the second best team in the country at this moment in time? No way. No way.
Who are? Now, Galway have a good record against Tip in the last couple of years, so they could make a claim to it. Do you think if Tip and Galway met in the championship now, who'd win?
Hard call that now. Very hard call. Listen, it's a score. It's been a score game in every championship meeting since 2015. Am I right in saying in championship games, isn't it? Yeah. Very, very difficult to call there, but there's also the flip of it is of whoever you think is going to win Leinster is in an All-Ireland semi-final where realistically I think Tip will get to a Munster final and they'll be beaten and they'll be in a quarter-final and could face a very, very difficult prospect to get through to a semi-final, if you get me.
Kilkenny have won 3 in a row in Leinster, though, so that kind of makes you feel like they're a more reliable team from that side of things in terms of getting to an All-Ireland semi-final.
No, it does, and that's a fair point. And I do, some Catnap, I think, said we were making unbelievable excuses for Kilkenny. I don't necessarily, he just says, geez, the excuses made for KK, they were sad sacks via Limerick. Limerick weren't even out with third gear. I don't necessarily...
Last 15 minutes, the tents were folded up, weren't they?
Yeah, they could have been beaten by 20 points. And I said it to, I don't know who was I chatting to, and as I said, the great Kilkenny team, to be fair, would have beaten that Kilkenny team by 20 points, in the sense of they had their foot on the throat and they would have really, really squeezed. And that was maybe the one disappointing thing from a Limerick point of view. I can't have Kilkenny. I can't have Tipperary too. I don't know who I can have too, to be honest with you, with any great degree of certainty. What Galway showed very little in last year's championship. We're abysmal in the Leinster final. We're brilliant in the All-Ireland semi-final. It is almost like one of the viewers said there, it depends on who they're playing. If they're playing Kilkenny, they can raise their game to an extent, and then they can be, very bad in the Leinster final. If they're playing Limerick, they seem to go up a couple of gears completely. So I don't know who I'd have number 2.
I actually think we kind of have to have Kilkenny still as number 2, even though that league final performance wasn't amazing. Just by into getting to the All-Ireland final last year, I think Clare are going to be in the conversation here. They've obviously, what they did to Cork recently. I actually still think we've no choice but to put Kilkenny number 2.
Well, I can't put Galway ahead of them with any great degree of certainty. Realistically, I can't put Tipperary. Tipperary are not, to me, they're not. Based on if all the teams are playing against each other, maybe I don't even know. I can't put Tipperary number 2 anyway.
You hate Tipperary. That's fine.
Yeah,
no,
I
don't think Tipperary have done enough to be number 2 either. Part of me is just kind of winding you up a little bit. Clare, look, I think if last year's anything to go by, they deserve to be up past Tipperary here.
If we're going on last year...
Well, going on last year, Tipperary, hardly deserved to be on the list.
No, well, that's true. Yeah, you just made the
list. They were massively underperformed. But look, Clare, Cork, Waterford. Waterford have 2 non-home games this year. Grand, they like Thurles. Everyone likes Thurles. So that is a disadvantage. And we don't know what we're going to expect. And we don't know, where they shadow box. And we don't know, will Austin Gleeson be back and firing after injury? There's a lot of imponderables.
He won't be apparently. He's been ruled out by his manager out of the first game anyway, and might feature off the bench in the second game, according to Davy. So that's from the horse's mouth. So
yeah. So look, I think it would be fairest to put Clare 3rd. Huh? Huh?
No.
Not for you.
No. No, I'll put it this way. I don't think Clare are going to finish ahead of Tipperary.
But I'm just saying, if we're to go on...
we can go a bit on last year, but we need to project forward a bit here as well now.
Yeah, but Shane O'Donnell will be back. I know David Fitzgerald is out, but Shane O'Donnell will be back. You should have, unless there's injuries that we're not...
Who will win this weekend between Tip and Clare?
No, come on.
Look, come on. Who will win this weekend between Tip and Clare? Who will finish higher in Munster between Tip and Clare?
I don't know who'll finish higher.
No, just answer the question. It's a yes or no question. Do you think Tipperary will finish ahead of Clare in Munster?
I don't know. I don't know. I think Tip will win this weekend. I don't know though, because you might start out great and then you might lose your next 2 games. I actually think whoever's got Limerick last, I'm not actually sure off the top of my head, but I think it's a massive advantage to have Limerick last, because going on recent years of the round robin, they're going to be through at that stage, and you're going to play them in a match where they're going to run the panel, and it's still a brilliant panel, but you've got a better chance than you would have had if you played them in the first game out.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Yeah, I'd have Tip 3rd, being honest.
Yeah,
I'd have Tipperary number 3, I'd have Galway number 4, and have Clare 5.
So that would, to me, suggest that you think that Clare are going to get out of Munster.
I do now. Yes, I thought they were bottom of Munster before I started this year, and now I think they'll come 3rd in Munster. And part of that is to do with I've lost faith in Cork again. And they might prove me wrong, but yeah, I thought they were just really disappointed in that league semi-final. I know they have a heap of injuries. But it's not that long of a gap.
Everyone does.
Yeah, it's not that long of a gap between the league and Munster, and there's a lot of guys with Cork that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen Dara Fitzgibbon. We haven't seen Mark Coleman. We've seen very little of Tim O'Mahony. Don't think we're going to see any of Alan Connolly. I think he's been ruled out of Munster or the year by Pat Ryan. Pat Horgan has played very little. He's only started one league game to the best of my knowledge. So those doubts are there with Cork again, and yeah, I think it's funny when you go down through the Munster round robin. The 3 times it's been played, Clare have finished top of the combined table in Munster. And I think you'd be, based on last year, All-Ireland semi-final side, I think I'm kind of coming around to them probably taking that 3rd place.
Okay, so look, I'm not going to argue with you in terms of having Tipperary higher than Galway and Clare there. But,
see, I think you did something there. I don't even know if you did it knowingly, but you kind of, I kind of would always try and be like as fair as possible. So you basically were kind of writing Tipperary off. So then I almost had to defend Tipperary.
No.
That
you talked me around.
it.
You talked about how great Tip are, and I was like, do you know what? He might be right here. Raymond Gilburn, actually, to give the flip side of it, says Tip start with games in Ennis and Cork. They then host Limerick in the 3rd round. They could be 0-3 after 3 games. Do you know what? That's probably not. And I mean, Tip were hammered by Cork last year.
Yeah, but poles apart between last year and this year. Realistically, I was looking back through. Tipperary's. I'll just get it here quickly. I just added up, the scores that various teams had and what they've scored throughout the round robin stages over the 3 years, and what Tipperary have accumulated. Just really quickly here. So Tipperary have 10 points from the 12 games they played in the round robin. They have an average score of 26.75 points. They have an average concession of 26.5. They're +3, but in 2019, Tipperary conceded a crazy amount of goals last year, 1196 in the Munster Championship. The year before that, they conceded, 180. I think they'll fall maybe. They won't concede that little, but I think they concede a lot less than they did last year. And I'd be expecting if they conceded a goal a game this year, I think that'd probably be about right. Maybe 5 goals over the course of it. I do think they're a lot better. They've showed them they were a lot better. And the last 10 or 15 minutes against Limerick, they could have been on the back foot going into Munster, really on the back foot, had they been, beaten 12 points or something like that. But they weren't, in fairness, and they held Limerick scoreless for a good degree of that last little chunk of the game. So, I think Tipper in a decent spot. And I just say it as well. I have to say, I think Cahill is a serious operator, and I would write off those last 2 Waterford games after the break last year. When you look at everything that came before that, and when you look at everything that Cahill came before that with Cahill as minor and under 20 and under 21 manager, I just think he has Tip absolutely humming. Looks like Cottle Barrett will be back as well. I think they deserve to be where they are in the rankings. Detox
101 says Limerick have gone out of games in the final quarter and almost all of their outings. Their 3rd quarter is great, but they fade away in the 4th quarter. You could say that definitely against Tip, maybe against Kilkenny to some degree as well. Are we writing off Cork a bit too prematurely? Like Liam Cahill has that great record, underage especially. Pat Ryan has a brilliant record underage as well. So are we writing them off just that little bit too early? Like, how much did they care about the league final, semi-final? Obviously they're disappointed, but they're bigger fish to fry at the same time.
Yeah, maybe so. I just thought they were caught between different systems and game plans in that semi-final. From looking at it, I didn't really know what they were doing. They also have a lot of lads coming in pretty cold into Munster. A lot of their bigger hitters. Like, if you look at it, Shane, are they going to go back pretty much to very, very similar personnel that started last year's championship? There's not going to be that. Yeah, there's not going to be that, because the other lads have gotten game time or whatever. But some, there hasn't been that many of them that have lit it up. I just think it's an unknown with Cork, and I'm a bit sick of giving them the benefit of the doubt at times, and I'm just going to say no. I don't think they'll come out at the moment.
But you never minded throwing the boot into them.
No, but I think it was deserved, and many of their own were throwing the boot in as well. So if many of their own are throwing it in, I don't feel why I shouldn't throw it in as well.
Yeah, get involved. Yeah, why not? Stick it into them. Right, so who's next in the rankings here? I would still put Waterford. I'm torn between Waterford and Cork, but I think even Waterford have a good record against Cork in general, if you take last year out of it. I'd be slightly inclined to put Waterford 6th here, even though obviously there's going to be another Leinster team that qualifies, but I think Waterford and Cork are both better than both Wexford and Dublin.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I couldn't have Waterford 6th, being honest with you.
You'd have Cork ahead of them?
I would have Cork ahead of them, yeah. Cork qualified last year. Munster. Waterford's Munster record is abysmal. I'm just going to go through it here. Waterford have played 12 games in the Munster round robin, won 1 and lost 10 and drawn 1. Their scoring difference in the Munster round robin is minus 103. Just for
From 12 games.
From 12 games, for
But
comparison.
that's Leinster on average by about 7 points, 8 points, something like that.
So just quickly, Clare's over the round robin is plus 14. Their average score, the scoring difference. Limerick's is plus 56, which is, mightily impressive. Cork is plus 21. Tipperary are plus 3, but a lot of that is based on last year now. And Waterford is minus 103. A lot of that is obviously based on 2019 and on the 2 games after the break last year. But we don't know where Dessie Hutchinson is going to be playing. We don't think Austin Gleeson is going to be playing. Stephen Bennett has played very little league and looked out of form. Jamie Barron did look in form, in fairness to him, and Caleb Lyons looked in form. But I just think there's a lot of questions, and it would be some shock if they were able to pull something out at the weekend and get a result against Limerick. But I can't see any other scenario other than Limerick, inflicting a reasonably heavy defeat on them and then being under pressure from the start. Then, I don't think that's a good game to start. Playing Limerick the first game I don't think it's a good game to start. Especially when Limerick played 2 weeks ago and they look to be on the boil big time. I think Waterford are going to be under pressure from the start.
I'd be interested to be privy to some of the discussions going on in the Waterford management meetings at the moment, in light of what you were saying there. Waterford are like the opposite of Clare over the last 5-6 years. Terrible in Munster, but great in the All-Ireland knockout games, bar the finals. And you know what? This is a good reason to actually put Cork ahead of Waterford. Also, in addition to what you said, is Cork players played with the club at the weekend. Tim O'Mahony, Dara Fitzgibbon. If both of those lads are ready to hum, and obviously Cork have that extra week to get their players right, that's important. So, do you know what? I'll go with you here again. I'll bow to your greater knowledge. Cork 6, Waterford 7. I just think the injuries that Wexford and Dublin have make it so difficult to predict who will finish ahead of each other. Dublin might not get through, but you could see them beating Wexford or vice versa. So they're just impossible to call. And no disrespect to the other teams that are obviously in the Leinster Championship, but we do expect it to be one of those two.
Well, Dublin beat Wexford last year, didn't get out of Leinster. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the mad scenario that we were in. And Wexford drew Westmeath and still got out of Leinster. Do you know? It was crazy enough. Listen, if Lee Chin, Rory O'Connor, Conor McDonald, etc. are fit, I just to be about favouring Wexford there, being honest. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to get out of the Dubs. Dubs have a ropey tie against Antrim first day out as well, up in Corrigan Park, which will be really interesting. We'll talk a bit more about that on Thursday. But I would have Wexford marginally ahead of Dublin, yeah.
Yeah, so are you in agreement there in terms of what I've put up?
Westmeath, Antrim have played Division 1 for the last 3 years and been competitive. Westmeath played Division 1 this year, saved themselves the last day. They obviously played Leinster Championship last year. Yeah, I'm thinking if there's going to be a shock in Leinster, I think Antrim are the more likely to cause it. I think they're marginally ahead of Westmeath, yeah.
Yeah, so overall, viewers, get your comments in. Do you agree or disagree? Limerick 1, Kilkenny 2, then it's Tipperary, Galway, Clare, Cork. So basically that's our 6 teams that we're sort of projecting will get through as well. Waterford, Wexford, Dublin. Oh, sorry, obviously there's 4 Munster teams named in there. So we're saying that Clare, Tipperary and Limerick will get through. Kilkenny, Galway and Wexford. Then you have Dublin, Antrim and Westmeath bringing up the rear. But look,
SSRI, I love SSRI here. He's big about the overhype. He says, are Antrim being a bit overhyped too? They haven't moved on really from beating Clare and drawing with Wexford 2 years ago, and they're in the weaker group of the league.
You could say the same for Kilkenny as well in terms of how we're building them up.
Yeah, true.
Antip, let's call a spade a spade. It was the easier side.
It was the easier side, but to be fair, they did deliver, a really strong half again. I know it's only a half against Limerick, but against the game Standard Bears, they did what no one else has really done. And I know Cork beat them in the first round of the league.
And Cork won some tight games this year, stuff that they haven't been doing for a number of years.
Yeah, I have to say, I probably put Limerick and Tip 1 and 2 in Munster, but the battle for 2, 3, 4 and 5 in Munster is fascinating, really. It really, really is.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. So that's it for the Hurling Power Rankings. Keep the comments coming in, even if you weren't watching it live. Get your comments in afterwards.